Morning, everyone. Just to set the context for my talk, I was talking to Joe a little while ago, and Joe came up with, what do you want to talk about? And I really couldn't come up with a topic. I was hoping Joe would throw a layup for me, something nice and easy, and he says, how about the PMPRB? That's a fantastic topic to talk about. He said, make it pithy, make it controversial, make it interesting, talk about the PMPRB. So what I thought I would do is maybe give it a crack and see, and really talk about the PMPRB then, now, and next, and really kind of thinking about the PMPRB as an entity and a search for relevance, and as a topic, the title says, maybe looking at it as a VCR in search of relevance in a streaming world. So let's start with the then, just maybe as a quick reminder to everyone, why was the PMPRB created? Well, 10 years prior to the actual start of this conference, Harry Eastman led the charge with the government at the time to create the Patent Medicines Price Review Board in 1987. This body was envisioned to be one component of really Patent Act modernization, which really was based on 4 elements: intellectual property protection, industrial benefits, multinational relations, consumer protection, and healthcare. And really what it was created out of the concern that if patentees got extended patent life for their innovative medicines, that they would abuse that monopoly. And that's, I think, an important point to remember, that this really was created out of a concern about abuse of monopoly power. Therefore, and it's been a controversial topic to this point, and there was actually a consumer protection mandate that was included within the thinking of this. And the points here are really from Robert Elgee and back in 2002 at PMPRB Symposium, when he said that really there was a regulatory mandate envisioned for the PMPRB back in 1987 as a consumer protection aspect to it. And interestingly, when you think about the PMPRB and what it really was intended to do back in 1987, was really to create a form of direct price control that replaced compulsory licensing. Prior to that, the federal government had the ability to actually enforce compulsory licensing and bring in their vision, competition into the marketplace, which would drive prices down. Compulsory licensing was eliminated, and the PMPRB was actually envisioned to replace that as a competitive dynamic in the healthcare marketplace. Actually, the Federal Court of Appeal has said that the purpose of the changes in the Patent Act was to empower the board to influence the price of patent medicines much to the same extent that competition fostered by compulsory licensing used to influence it. And I think that's an important point to remember, this idea of competition. So let's look at now. Has the PMPRB been effective? Now, there's lots of ways to look at this. Everybody has their opinion on this, but I think if you look at it from the perspective of abuse of monopoly power, and maybe just a quick way to think about that is look to south of the border and what's happened in the last couple of years with Valiant and with Turing Pharmaceuticals. If you have a monopoly, if you're Martin Shkreli, you can purchase a product and raise the price by 5,000% in one day. That's clearly abuse of monopoly power. But what's happened in Canada? If you look in Canada, and this is from the 2015 annual report from the PMPRB, that year-over-year changes in price, ex-factory prices, really have not happened. If you look over the period of time, there really has been no change to the Patent Medicines Price Index, and really so the pricing that's there from the perspective of abusing monopoly power, the ability to raise prices indiscriminately across the board by manufacturers, the evidence just isn't there that that's happened. In fact, prices have been relatively unchanged year-over-year since 2006. So in some sense, the PMPRB is working. PMPRB has been working when you look at it from the perspective of the price changes versus CPI. Manufacturers don't take allowable price changes. CPI has continued to increase in the blue, but prices of patent medicines have not increased. So in a sense, the PMPRB is working. It's doing its job. There's really no need to change it. However, the mob is angry. I thought about a 1950s monster movie when the townspeople rise up to chase the monster out, but the PMPRB has really been facing a lot of growing external criticism. People have been saying Canadian drug prices are too high relative to the OECD countries. Canadians are paying too much. As Chris talked about in his prior presentation, former federal minister of health says Canadians are being ripped off in terms of high drug prices. There's concern that these non-transparent PLAs with public payers are being subsidized by private payers and by cash-paying payers. The mob is angry and rising up. Something has to happen. Well, PMPRB decided to do something about it. And so, AKA the discussion paper was launched back in June of this year. And really this is a consultation process to look at how to modernize the PMPRB. It's interesting to note that really since the guidelines were changed in 2010, there really has been no significant modernization of the excessive pricing policies for this body since 1993. It's been status quo for a long period of time. But The board is now looking at moving forward and looking at areas such as categorization of new products based on therapeutic benefit, whether that should continue to exist, looking at international and domestic price comparisons, looking at methodology to calculate price increases, which really don't exist as we saw in the previous slides, and the famous topic that keeps coming up always, this question of any market review. So this process is now underway and discussions are happening. However, in terms of the next, the problem is things change and things evolve, and there really is now a new sheriff in town, and it's the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical, or Pan-Canadian, as Chris said, Pricing Alliance. And as of September 30th this year, there's been about 118 negotiations, 4 of them since August of this year that have been completed. 37 are in process, and a bunch of products have either been referred to individual provinces to follow up or have been sort of punted back from PCPA and haven't gone forward. So the environment has changed, and this new sheriff's got some pretty big power that they bring with them. And I think that's something that has put a challenge in front of the PMPRB in search of its relevance, is what to do in a world when now the new sheriff is there. From a manufacturer's perspective, we've adapted. I think at the end of the day, our primary objective is private or public reimbursement of drug products. It's getting products that have value out to patients, the right patient, the right drug at the right time. And that is our primary goal, and we'll continue to do that. I think most of us as organizations look at the PMPRB as a stage gate along this process to secure coverage. It's something that we have to work our way through, and over the years we've done very good. We've developed plans and strategies to work our way through the PMPRB process. The bulk of our resources and effort now as an industry are allocated to PCPA negotiations in the letter of intent process. And I think as the PCPA office ramps itself up and some of the interesting things that have been developing there, even more resources, time, effort, focus is going to be allocated by the industry on the PCPA. So when you look at the next and you look at the PMPRB, my question would be, is the PMPRB still relevant? Has the new sheriff come in town? Is the new sheriff the body that's actually providing the competitive influence and the dynamic? If you've been part of those LOI negotiations, they are not friendly, they are competitive, zero-sum game situations. And so from the perspective of the PMPRB and the federal government, the board was put in place to create competition to drive prices down. I would suggest that a better competitor has appeared that can do that job just as efficiently or even more efficiently as we move forward with our mission to make medicines available. So my question to the group and to everybody in general is, has the market spoken? And this is a quote from Mary Catherine Lindbergh, that this consultation, referring to the PMPRB discussion paper, is aligned with the ongoing efforts, and I think that's a very key factor, aligned with the ongoing efforts of the federal, provincial, and territorial ministers of health to lower pharmaceutical prices while enhancing the affordability, accessibility, and appropriate use of prescription drugs. I think the board is doing a nice job trying to work with its partners in an aligned fashion, but its partners are also aligning their own interests. And while the PMPRB is trying to find a way to develop a red box to deliver this to your doorstep and have somebody who still has a VCR come into play, their partners at the provincial level has said, actually, you know what, instead what we're going to do is we're going to stream you video 24/7 to any device that you want, make it so that you can save it and move on ahead. And the question to the PMPRB is, what are you going to do with that video cassette when Netflix and all streaming services exist? Thank you.